how would you propose to meet the budgets that are being brought about by different agencies? Would you have to do that by across-the-board cut?
Preston, we're working right now on a plan that will, and as you well know, having served in government, there's a big turnover among the state employees. I think it's running over 16%, and it has run higher in the past. And I think that if we can take that into account, that's one area that we might be able to see some immediate cutbacks. It's not an easy task, as you know. We're going to meet the needs that we have in education. We can't turn our back on that. We have the funding set up now for our highways, and I think that's adequate. And those are two major areas of our greatest concern.
If we move over to the emotional issues, which is, I would say right now, is the no pass, no play program is going on. What I was wondering, Mark, are your feet in concrete to the extent that you would advocate no change in that rule?
Well, the change that has been suggested, Preston, has been to drop back, maybe let them average their grades, only 3 weeks. All of those things we discussed great length in the last session of the legislature, and we couldn't get anybody to agree on any change except to unravel it and go back where we were.
Mark, I've sure enjoyed the visit, and I'm and I are looking forward to seeing you at the Prince of Wales occasion.
Governor, there's been a request for a special committee to be set up to look into the problem concerning the white oil well problem in the Panhandle. Do you think at this time this is the way to go on this problem?
Well, first of all, Larry, I think a study committee would take too long. I think the action can be taken more swiftly and directly by virtue of what the Railroad Commission is doing. I asked the Railroad Commission, and Chairman Buddy Temple responded, to hold field rule hearings to let those people who are contestants over the issues in the field come forward, try to reach some settlement, and I think we can then move more swiftly to a resolution of the problem. And I couldn't be more concerned about it. I've been working on this since last summer. Members of my staff work on it every day, and I have been in direct contact with both independent operators as well as the major companies involved, and I'm going to continue to press for a resolution.
Governor, you're holding firm on your stand on the educational reforms despite intense criticism from teachers and the coaches in the state. What effect do you think this will have on your re-election chances?
Larry, I think it's important that we not talk about that in the sense of re-election. I think it's important we talk about it in the future of Texas. What we're saying is that we have to have the best trained young minds anywhere in the world right here in Texas. If we'll stick with these reforms, that's what we'll get. If we listen to those people who detract from it, those people who are afraid of the future, those people who would try to unravel the reforms, then we'll go back to being just the way we were, at the back of the class. I want Texas and Texans to be at the front of the class, and that's what we're going to do so long as I'm governor.
Governor, with the decline in revenue from the producing oil wells and due to the prices and decrease in drilling, many state officials say there's no way to avoid another tax increase in the coming year. You've already said that you're going to continue your opposition to a state income tax. Do you foresee the need for some increased fees in the next session and other taxes?
Well, I don't at this time, but it's still unpredictable as to the number of dollars we have in revenue coming in for the next session. We'll watch it very closely. I don't see any need for increased taxes or fees at this time. It is important to recognize that we are going to monitor on a daily basis this price of oil. We're also going to cut back before we ever raise taxes.
With Ken Snow and Mark Hanna with weather.
Good afternoon. Governor Mark White has made it official, announcing in Houston this morning that he will seek re-election to the state's top job. Speaking from the elementary school where his mother once taught, White called his first term in office one of courage, vision, and commitment. Among his proudest achievements, said the governor, was the passage of an educational reform package by the 1984 legislature, a package that White says his opponents have attacked.
Those voices of the past and others who have joined them are saying we should retreat. They want to chip away at our reforms. But if you and I let them do that, how are we ever going to explain to our children that the word opportunity has been removed from the education cornerstone? And if we let them do that, we might as well take Texas out of there too. Texas is going to be there because if this great state of ours stands for anything at all, it stands for opportunity, and without it, we aren't Texas.
In comments following his announcement, White said he'll do his best to avoid the adoption of a state income tax during the next term, but he acknowledged that a downturn in the economy forced him to alter similar tax promises made 4 years ago. And shortly after the governor's announcement this morning, Channel 7's Bruce Gordon talked with him via a satellite hookup to Houston. His interview covered a variety of topics.
Governor Mark White, thank you for joining us this morning. Critics in this gubernatorial campaign have already made much of the issue of leadership or the lack thereof from the governor's mansion during the last several years. They say you were not a leader during the tough battle over educational reform and the state prison lawsuit settlement. Your reaction to the leadership question?
Well, first of all, I think you see that the accomplishments of these past 3 years fly in the face of those accusations. They have been trying for about 30 years to pass a statewide water plan in Texas. During my administration, we passed it with a 76% majority of the people. Highway funding was at a standstill in our state, and our cities were choking, and our rural areas were seeing potholes develop throughout what used to be the world's best highway system. We passed dramatic increases in revenues for highway construction, both in our cities and rural areas. In the area of education reform, I think you know that we were the ones that led the fight to see that children are going to have the best education right here in Texas. That reform effort is the reform effort that's being copied by states throughout the nation. I think that you'll find that those charges are not secured by the facts.
Governor, in making your announcements, you brought up the issue of taxes and specifically the worsening economic picture that forced you to change your position regarding increasing taxes. In these uncertain times here in Texas, how can any voter believe any promises or even goals, as you mentioned this morning, set forth by a politician?
Well, I think you'll find that we've kept those commitments. The commitment we made was that we didn't have to increase revenues, we did have to improve schools, and we had to improve highways. The point here is that we had a depression that occurred because of the irresponsible action taken in Washington, and we've also seen a loss of those revenues. I think you're going to find that we had to have our obligation for good education, for good highways. We kept that commitment, and I think it's important. Those things we had control over, we kept those commitments.
Governor, your position on a state income tax during the next term?
I am going to support a constitutional amendment that would forbid an income tax, either corporate or personal, in Texas.
State unemployment rate on the rise and nowadays topping the national level on any number of occasions, any number of months. 29 Texas counties listed as among the nation's hungriest, according to a recent Harvard survey. Is this progress?
Well, I think that you'll find that there's very little that they can do in Texas concerning the price of oil in the world. The price of and the problems we face in agriculture, as you well know, are determined largely by policy set in Washington. The fact that we have low unemployment compared to our sister states, such as 11% in Louisiana, over 10% in Arkansas, higher unemployment in Oklahoma and New Mexico, I think points very well to the fact that we have provided leadership. Frankly, today in Texas, we're not as dependent on oil and gas revenues as we were just 3 years ago. It was 23% of our total revenues 3 years ago. It's now 13%. And so therefore, I think that's the type of broader economic base we have to have in order to provide for the future of Texas.
Governor Mark White, thank you for your time and your comments live via satellite from Houston.
Eyewitness News, San Antonio's top-rated newscast.
Still ahead, Governor White hits the campaign trail.
And a look at the impact of the black vote on upcoming elections. Stay with us. Governor Mark White went to school today to make it official. In a public schoolroom in Houston where his mother once taught, White formally announced he is running for another 4-year term, as everyone expected. White says he expects he'll be facing Republican former Governor Bill Clements in the November general election, and he referred to Clements as, quote, the voice of the past, unquote. White squeezed into a student's desk to make the announcement officially, which 17 students got to see in person and which was also broadcast by satellite free of charge to TV stations across the state.
We have kept the vision, courage, and commitment we began with, but we still have more to do, and so I will seek another term as governor, firm in my belief that this election offers one of the clearest choices in many years.
Then later, during a series of interviews with reporters from around the state, White said he's confident there will not be any backlash against his campaign by the majority of the state's teachers just because of the sweeping school reforms he fought for.
I don't think so, because I know the teachers of Texas like the reforms that we've passed, the smaller class size, the improved standards, the requirement that we're going to have professional teachers in the classroom. They're getting better pay. They have duty-free lunches. We're treating them as professionals, and I think that's important. As soon as this competency test is completed, we're going to see a renewed morale among our teachers, and I think you'll find that there'll be renewed respect from all the people.
That competency test, by the way, will be given March 10th. White also declined to estimate just how much he'll spend during this campaign. He says whatever it takes. Last time, as he put it, it took all he had.
With Bob Karstens and Stephanie Williams, Larry Dingmore with weather, and Dave Cody on sports.
Claiming his first term was filled with courage and vision, Governor Mark White today announced he will seek re-election to the state's highest office. White made his announcement from the Houston schoolroom where his mother once taught. The governor used that backdrop to praise his administration's support of public school reforms. White noted for reporters the highway improvements and state water plan okayed during his tenure. And in a satellite interview with Channel 7's Bruce Gordon, the governor blamed a Republican recession for sales tax increases and for tuition hikes in 1984.
I think you're going to find that we had to have our obligation for good education, for good highways. We kept that commitment, and I think it's important. Those things we had control over, we kept those commitments.
Governor, your position on a state income tax during the next term?
I am going to support a constitutional amendment that would forbid an income tax, either corporate or personal, in Texas.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. The Texas governor's race is heating up,
with the governor himself announcing his bid for re-election today.
The vision, courage, and commitment we began with, but we still have more to do, and so I will seek another term as governor, firm in my belief that this election offers one of the clearest choices in many years. And that choice is
Governor White made it official in a Houston classroom where his mother once taught. He promised not to back off from the new education reforms and pledged a renewed effort to fight a state income tax.
Democratic challengers, which he accused today of ignorance and superstition. While taxes are one main issue on the governor's platform,
among the critics, supporters of unlicensed private schools who picketed the governor's appearance.
Disappointed that not all teacher groups are backing you?
Well, you know, they didn't all back me last time, and we won then, and I think that what we have is the majority of the teachers agree on what we're doing in education. Smaller class size. If there's a teacher in Texas that's against smaller class size, I'd like to talk to that teacher.
In his first campaign, White promised there would be no new taxes, but taxes were raised. This time he pulled back from an ironclad promise against tax increases.
What are the chances you'll have to raise taxes again?
I don't think so. It's possible to say that at this time.
After the announcement, aides looked on approvingly as cameras focused on the children of supporters whose parents helped them write questions.
To do what to the school day? Lengthen the school day. Let me tell you, when that's...
Later, the classroom was cleared so White could be interviewed by anchor people.